Once Corey Holcomb and Anton Daniels had their beef, it started to get personal. It was no longer Corey versus Anton Daniels. It was more like Corey versus Anton Daniels, his daughter, and his wife. And this is really when the beef got to another level.
That's his daughter. This man said he ain't got no children out of wedlock.
That's Cool daughter.
That's who?
That Cool daughter.
That's the air up there, nigga. Look, nigga, let me tell you something. Don't make no more kids. That gonna be buying like you after a while.
At this particular point, a lot of people were still rocking with Corey Holcomb, but people started to get on the fence. Even if you didn't like Anton Daniels or his commentary, this felt like going too far. Talking about somebody's daughter, especially a 17-year-old, was seen as unacceptable. Even though I initially more or less defended Corey Holcomb's position against Anton, things started to change because Corey Holcomb understood the criticism coming his way. Of course, as a comedian, Corey Holcomb is used to compartmentalizing controversial content under the guise of comedy. And for all the people who disagreed with his take on Anton's wife and daughter, Corey had this to say.
Let me tell everybody something out there. If you put a video or a picture online, it belongs to the game. It's not even your property no more. Did you know that? Thank Corey Holcomb for telling you that. Oh, Corey gonna get in trouble for showing this. Let me tell you something. If you put it online, it belongs to me.
It's the First Amendment, freedom of speech, and in the freedom of speech, you also are allotted the freedom to have your opinion, whether negative or positive, about anything, public figure.
So Corey Holcomb believed that he was protected by free speech, the First Amendment. And not only did he believe that, so did his co-host, Craig Fax. Now, you heard him in the clip basically say that if somebody posts a photo or anything online, it belongs to him. That's at least what he said. And of course, none of us were attorneys at that point. None of us had gone to law school. Not me, not Craig Fax, and not Corey Holcomb. And to be honest, none of us really know the law deeply. We may understand certain parts of it, but it's very easy for a YouTuber to misinterpret the law. That's why we are YouTubers or content creators and not lawyers. But there was one lawyer who had an opinion on this, the lead attorney. The lead attorney specialized in family law when he was practicing. He didn't really deal with defamation or libel, but he did understand legal principles from other areas of law, enough to apply them across different situations. So even if he didn't specifically practice that niche, he was still able to break it down and categorize it. And what he did was weigh in on the situation. In my honest opinion, he did so in a fairly unbiased way. He focused on whether Corey Holcomb's statements, especially about a 17-year-old, were actually protected under free speech, or if they crossed a legal line.
Now that we've got this straight, not only is the child assumingly not a public figure, she's private, but she's also a child. The child. Now, if you want to come at me, it's fine. You got more leeway. There's more tolerance for harsh speech. You can say a lot of shit about me. You can say a lot of shit about Anton. You can say a lot of shit about Tasha K. all of them. Because we're public figures. If they're like you people in the chat, y'all have more protection. It's very difficult. Y'all can file lawsuits a lot quicker. But man, there's another category. This category is for private individuals and it has more protection. Man, when you talk about private minors, you can barely say their name. They are so fucking protected. You can barely say their name.
So this is an important pathway because it breaks down some key legal differences, public versus private protection. There are criticisms toward public figures such as Corey Holcomb or Anton Daniels, and then there are private citizens, and even more protected in that category is a private minor.
The lead attorney basically emphasized that the law protects children very strongly in defamation contexts, especially when they are not voluntarily putting themselves in the public eye. The argument is that minors should not be dragged into public debate or public attacks in the same way public figures are. Now, this directly contradicts what Corey Holcomb was suggesting, his idea that if it's posted on the internet, it's fair game or belongs to the game. But then he also continued, there are super famous children who put themselves out there and start speaking on stuff. So not all minors receive the same level of protection in every situation. There are exceptions, especially when a minor is actively participating in public media or influencer-type spaces. But in this case, Anton Daniels' daughter, who was 17 and not previously a public figure, would generally not fall into that exception. The lead attorney then challenged Corey Holcomb's First Amendment defense. Yes, the First Amendment protects free speech, but it does not mean there are no consequences. He also broke down the public figure versus private figure distinction. In general, YouTubers and public commentators are public figures, meaning they can be criticized more openly. But private citizens are protected to a much higher degree. And even if Corey Holcomb and Anton Daniels are both public figures, their spouses, and especially their children, are not automatically public figures. So the key point is this. The First Amendment protects you from government punishment, but it does not protect you from civil liability, meaning even if you won't go to jail for speech, you can still be sued for damages if that speech harms a private citizen like a spouse or a minor. A lot of content creators get this wrong. I've seen Fresh and Fit get this wrong. And the point he's making is that you just cannot say anything to anyone with no consequences. Again, the lead attorney is being very objective here and not taking personal shots at Corey Holcomb. But at the same time, the commentary around it got heated, especially online, where people started picking sides and turning it into content drama. At this point, Corey Holcomb started beefing with several detractors, including the lead attorney. This was around the time the lead attorney had gained permission to interview Corey Holcomb's lawyer, Derek Dion. Corey Holcomb later came onto platforms and began insulting the lead attorney, including making personal accusations without proof. If he truly felt the lead attorney was wrong, people questioned why he would even invite him onto his platform in the first place. The lead attorney later addressed Corey Holcomb again in a separate video, and while doing so, also took some light shots in return. Meanwhile, the discussion continued to escalate across clips and commentary channels. The bigger point, however, is that many people think they understand the law when they actually don't. A lot of content creators assume free speech means you can say anything without consequences, but that's not true. Free speech does not protect defamation, harassment, or statements about private individuals, especially minors. What it actually means is that you are free to speak, but you are also free to be sued for what you say in civil court. And in this situation, the debate highlights that misunderstanding clearly. A concluding commentary explains that as audiences become more critical, some creators lose support when their content is seen as excessive or irresponsible, leading to a decline in engagement and reputation over time. It then breaks down the First Amendment in simple terms, explaining its 5 core freedoms: religion, speech, press, assembly, and petition, which together form the foundation of democratic rights in the United States. However, it also clarifies an important limitation, that free speech does not protect slander, threats, or incitement to violence, and that legal boundaries exist between expression and liability. The message emphasizes that while people are free to speak their opinions, they are not free from consequences if those statements cross legal lines, especially when it involves defamation or minors. The segment closes warning creators to understand these limits and avoid assuming free speech is absolute, before signing off the discussion as a broader lesson on responsibility in online commentary.